just was coming on really quick, and I wanted to talk about just our economic realities, right? I wanted to talk about, how we're doing this thing online, and we've done it for quite a long time at this point, where you have, I'm sorry, it's like my lighting is super weird, but you have people coming online talking about how Black women make significantly more than Black men, right? And how there's always these conversations about gender that are deeply rooted and steeped in white people's problems. White people problems, okay? Economic inequality has never been a man versus woman issue. On average, are men paid more? Yes. All right. I believe that that is true. However, has it ever really been between Black men and Black women? Or has it always been between white men and white women? Right. I watched the series and it was actually based on a true story, but I think it was relating to like chemistry. I think it was actually called Chemistry. And something that really stood with me from this show was there was this white woman who wanted to be a chemist, essentially, or I think she was like into food and culinary. She wanted her own show and things like that, right? And at the time, this is like during the 50s and 60s, white women are fighting for, my hair is getting on my nerves. White women are fighting for equality. They're fighting to be seen in the same capacity. They're fighting for economic equality. And and Black people are fighting to keep highways from coming through their neighborhoods, right? They're fighting through segregation. They're fighting for equality as humans and as persons living within American society seeking resources, right? And so it's like, it blows my mind when here we are, fast forward today, and I'm on Instagram and I see a Black man, Black as day. He's not AI. He might as well be if he's taking articles from LinkedIn, but he's Black man, and he's talking about what advice he has. Mind you, this is a Black man. What advice he has for Black women making $700,000 per year. Excuse me? Excuse me? I beg your pardon? Like, excuse me? Who do you know that's making over a $500,000 a year? Because you know me, I'm low key a numbers girly. You know what I mean? Finance student, like that's my jam. I need to know, who do you know that is making Black women, even in their relationships, coupled, okay, single, married, quote unquote breadwinners of their family. Who do you know in an IRL that is making $500,000, over $500,000 a year? Come to the front. Come to the front on average. Now, if it's me, you, and several other people that don't know, then that honestly right there, that's how you can rule out statistics. Can we get back to like discerning statistics? Can we discern statistics? I think we should. I think we should actually kind of like impart a little bit of common sense and intuition in regards to the statistics, because I just think at this point it's getting out of hand. This Black man pulls an article from LinkedIn. He shows it in a very quick snip. Then he brings this white woman on, and she's talking about, she's relating to women, right? And she's giving them relational advice for women who make $500,000, over $500,000 a year. Now, I need you as a Black man who set up on that podcast, and I need you to come to the front right now, and I need you to point out at least 7 Black women that you know. You might be able to point out, you know what, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. At least come and point out 4. At least come and point out 4 Black women that you know that are making over $500,000 a year. And that's how you can play the statistics game. Because we're at this point now where people are vying for statistics, in the sense that people are pulling statistics that simply support their argument. If you get online and the statistic is blank American women, that doesn't include Black people. And you know why it doesn't include Black people? Because if it included Black people, we wouldn't have to overwork, and we wouldn't have to, extend ourselves in such a way to find statistics that deliberately stay African American. We wouldn't have to work so hard to find statistics that deliberately state Black people, Black women, Black men. Okay, so that's kind of how you have to play the American statistics game. I know everybody wants to pull a cite a source. And first of all, I don't even think y'all even know how to cite sources. And actually, no. I'm not going to get up on that high horse because I don't like educating in a way where I say, y'all don't know what y'all doing, right? I don't like to take that approach. What I am going to say, and I'm going to relax my frustration with this piece here, is that a .com is not a credible source. So LinkedIn.com, that's not a credible source. That's not a credible source. I don't know if this white woman, I don't know if they were in on it together. I don't know what she was trying to gain from that. Perhaps she was a corporate white woman trying to work her way into the relational sector. You know, it's very profitable today to provide people with relational advice and give women relational confidence, right? If you're marketing to women that supposedly make over $500,000 a year, you're going to, go above and beyond to try to reach that market because you want to be compensated. You want to solve their problems and their relational dynamics, and you want to be compensated. So maybe that was her ploy. I don't really know what the plot was, but I know that it was very disingenuous, and I was bothered by it. I was bothered by it really just because these type of conversations are irrelevant to the Black community. These type of conversations are relevant to our current political climate. These type of conversations are irrelevant in regards to individual case-by-case basis because they don't exist. You know what I mean? They quite literally don't exist. And if you are, and I say this, in regards to African American because it's like, this is a Black man. Like, what are you doing in white people's business? What are you doing in white people's business? Here's what I know. When I'm, in the world, I've never before seen so many homeless Black women and children. Never in my life. I've seen homeless men of all races, but I've never in my life seen so many homeless Black women. And this might be the time where we can say, yeah, the pillar of their communities, the ones who are very strong, the ones who are, never before have I seen it. But also, simultaneously, I'm also seeing a steady rise in rent. I'm also seeing gentrification times 3,000. Okay, if it was a white flight out in suburbia, it's taking place today. Okay, that's literally what's going on. So it's like we're living, and I don't even want to say the remnants, I don't even want to say the reckonage because this is happening in real time. But it's like these are the days in which we're living in. You know what I mean? So it's just like I don't really get what people are trying to do online when they come online and create certain type of content to try to be informational, because it gets to a point where it's like you're actually creating a little bit of harm. You know what I mean, with this level of disingenuous. Like I don't understand it. So that's not true. And I think if you are someone who is stuck on the statistics piece, I mean, at the very least, try to find a .org at the very least, right? And furthermore, I just want to encourage everybody to really look at the people in their lives because that's your reality. Okay, regardless, you might not like your reality, but that is your reality. Right. And so it's just like, I don't know, you guys. I think that we're at a point in time where things are getting dangerous. Things are getting dangerous. People are taking on all type of stuff that just don't have nothing to do with nothing. So I just wanted to come on here and share that because I think that's important. And I don't know who's going to come on. I'm going to hang out for just a few more minutes here. My lighting wasn't the best, despite me having lighting in every other capacity. But I'm on my laptop, so my phone is actually facing like this way. But I just wanted to come on here and share that because I couldn't believe it. Right? Like, it can't be Black women are high earners and are making more than blah, blah, blah. And this is the relational gap. And then simultaneously, you turn around and say that, because of the gutting of DEI, more than over 350,000 Black women jobs got cut. Like, which one is it? You see what I'm saying? You see how the math isn't mathing? Like, this is not a woman's issue. This is not a man's issue. This is a white people's issue. And for far too long, I think we've used our voices and our platforms as African American people to fight against certain realities that don't actually pertain to us, to advocate for certain economic realities that have never been a problem in our communities. Right? This is a non-issue. And I'm not just talking about in a general sense. I'm talking about in the real sense that Black people are being displaced. In New York, our homes are being stolen. Land is being stolen. Land is being bought. Okay. Land is like, I mean, I don't know. The children are being, you know what it is. Nolan Wells. Like, I just feel like that's our reality. So I just think we need to stay on the right side of the fence. And I don't know what this content creator was trying to do. I don't know what it is that he was trying to achieve, but either way, it's dangerous. It's psychologically dangerous. I think in this day and age where so many people are seeking the truth and where so many people are seeking information, I think now more than ever, we need to be very, very mindful of the things that we share. I think we need to be very, very mindful of the platforms that we maintain. I think we need to be very mindful of the work that we do if we're serious about this work. Even if we're not serious about this work, I think we need to have a little bit more dignity, right? About the lives of people who are actually looking at the work. You know what I mean? Because if you know you're self-hating, if you know you're just trying to get a quick buck, I mean, it's just like, I don't know. I mean, obviously, being a good person has gone out the window, so it doesn't really matter. But I don't know. If the people are supporting this, I think we need to be a little bit more critically, think more critically when we look at this type of content, at the very least. At the very least. So that's all I wanted to come on here and say. You know what I mean? I think conversations about economic pay gap, pay wages, and things like that. These are not our problems as African American people. These are not our problems. We have bigger fish to fry. We thank you so much for that. We have bigger fish to fry. We have bigger fish to fry. Like I said, gentrification is very real. Okay, I've never seen so many unhoused black men and women. Well, black women and children. Like, I just don't think that these are our battles. They're just not. Do you guys know for every time that there's a very significant moment in history, right? For example, you have mass incarceration. Do you know that that was something that was happening predominantly to the black community? You know that, right? And so, okay, so when you think about that in real time, if you know that mass incarceration was happening by and large to African American people, then you also know simultaneously there was something that was going on within white, right, during that time. I don't want to say for white Americans. I don't want to say white history, but you know what I mean? So it's like when I think about that, I'm always just like so amazed, right? Because you have to know that for every historic turning point, for every moment of advocacy, for every moment of like liberation within the black community, white America was actually experiencing something completely different, right? And that's why I love the work of history so much because it's like I don't even think that they can even fathom what it is that black people have endured. That's why they're so confused so many times, and they seek our platforms, and they seek, sometimes they don't seek it, but they may be combative in regards to, black historians because it's like we were living two completely different realities. And I think for me, if I get nothing across on this video, it is to ignite that reality for many of you guys who are online and you're integrating yourselves with white Americans, in whatever capacity, in whatever regard. If you're about to do a platform or a podcast or whatever, right? It's to say, just keep in mind that we're living two completely different realities, right? Gender wars, whatever you want to call it for white women, is not the same with what black women are going through, right? We're still fighting some of the same battles. Quite frankly, Trump is actually undoing, right? This administration, rather, is undoing so many of the things that we fought so hard for. So our realities and our advocacy, rather, has never been the same. And that's why we struggle to kind of come together as Americans. It's not because, we're distracted and, no, it's not because of that. It's because we're quite literally fighting two completely different battles, right? White Americans are not facing homelessness, right, and displacement and justification, right? They are the byproduct of that, right? They're the byproduct of white flight, right? But they're not facing that on average, right? And sometimes you're not going to see that in the media. You're not going to see that in the news because it's happening in real time. And if I wasn't to speculate and say you're not going to see it in the news because it's happening in real time, I'm going to say you're not going to see that in real time because, well, quite frankly, you can do your own research. But I would say just look around. Right. Sometimes the research is just looking around and opening your eyes and being alive for once and seeing what is going on in your life, seeing what is going on in your communities, seeing where all the black people are and seeing where the white people are. Right. Sometimes it's not really, arguing about statistics. It's just opening your eyes and seeing what is going on in real time. You know what I mean? And seeing how it is that white wealth is continuously increasing, but all the black people are moving back in with their parents. You know what I mean? Like, what's going on here? You know what I mean? Like, sometimes you got to trust your intuition. Sometimes you have to trust your reality, right? Because we get online, we get on social media, and you'll have white racists. You'll have people who will want to argue certain things, and maybe you don't articulate it in a certain way. Maybe you're not necessarily a scholar from Yale, but you got common sense and you know what's going on. You know what I mean? So it's like sometimes people will try to debate that with you, and they'll have you question your reality. Whole time you looking out the window and you see what's going on. You know what I mean? So I think if I had to say anything, I would say don't lose sight of that. Don't lose sight of that in this current time where everybody's online using their voice and their platform, and it's not always for good. You know what I mean? Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So, hey, listen. You guys, if there are black women who are making $500,000 a year, I don't know any. I would like to meet them, but I don't know any. I think that we speculate so often. And if I'm going to be honest too, I think when you start talking numbers, and I think we see people in certain positions and we see certain things, I just don't think we really understand the breakdown. You know what I mean? Do we really understand the breakdown of what it costs to sustain a lifestyle, to pay back the investment, right? The educational investment, depending on where it is that they are, right? I don't know if we realize it, but not everybody is really living with this significant amount of cash flow. I mean, what do you guys consider to be free? You know what I mean? Are you really free? You know what I mean? How can you be free? I mean, and maybe this is a conversation I'll have with someone who can also relate, right? So I'm not just talking to myself and answering my own questions. That would be crazy. But I'm going to ask you guys, like, do you really feel free? You know what I mean? I think about, how you get to a point in your life, and I'm speaking from experience for someone that I know. You reach a point in your life where your debt is paid off, right? And technically you are economically free, right? You don't have any debt, you don't got no bills. And then just given this, the system in which we live in with the food and all these different things, you find yourself struggling with an illness. You need a surgery. And now for some weird kind of, way, right now you find yourself thousands of dollars in medical debt. You know what I mean? So it's just like, I don't know, y'all. I don't know. I think that for many people, like, and I've seen this in real time, I think there are, let me say this. I think it takes a while to get to a point where you can accept reality. And I think that it takes courage to dream, right? I think to be able to really dream as an African American person of a better future or whatever, I think it's about dreaming with your eyes wide open. You know what I mean? I think too many of us think that if we can just, silo the voices of those that we might consider radical, if we can just, ignore the realities, right, of how our life is so fragile within this country, how it always has been, right? If we can just be more like someone else, because we hate ourselves so much so, and we feel like it is, the black man, and it is the black woman, and it is black people, right? If we can just be more like a certain type of standard, a certain type of, archetype, then we can have this sense of freedom. I think we cling to a lot of different ideas, right? A lot of different solutions, rather, to a very big problem that was predicated on a foundation that was here before you and I. And so I think, in order to really have like a clear sense of self, of mind, of peace, or whatever, I think that takes courage. I think it takes courage to be able to dream with your eyes wide open. And I don't think we really have that today. Right? You can look at the case, for example, with Nolan Wells, and it's clear as day. It really doesn't take a detective to do too much speculation. It doesn't really take any bias to do speculation. It's like cold blood. You look at history, it just paints a very clear picture. And it's like, if you're afraid, right, as a black person, because you want to be something, because you may not like yourself, you may not like where you come from, you may not like where you grew up, you just quite literally hate yourself. You know what I mean? You hate to be black. You hate that your mother comes in and she's wearing a bonnet in the kitchen. You get irritated that you fry chicken. You know what I mean? You're irritated that you don't eat whatever your case may, whatever your stuff is, because it's a lot of stuff. It's a lot of stuff within American society. It's a lot of stuff, right? If you haven't done that work, you're going to be susceptible to the lies. And it's going to make it very hard for you to be somebody whose head is on a swivel and you thinking clearly. You know what I mean? So that's all I got to say. Believe what you want to believe. But at the end of the day, I mean, to be fair, something I think about, and I was thinking about earlier today when I was just like thinking about how many African American people were oblivious to the case with Nolan Wells. I was like, man, I think for many black people, it's unfortunate, but it's like, I think people who think like that, who think that racism is just a thing of the past, who think that, life is just rainbows and butterflies, and the injustices that occur are due to the black body that was in the position, right? I think that, you're probably going to experience some injustice one day. And I think it's going to be so earth shattering. And I say that because maybe on a spiritual sense, right? I'm not into that, but I'm just more so saying, like, maybe on some level you need a reckoning. You know what I mean? You might need a reckoning. And I feel like when people have those reckonings, then they can say, oh, right? The things that my brothers, my sisters, my cousins, my neighbors have experienced is real. And it is unfortunate, but I feel like it's not until some Black people experience racism and discrimination, right, that you can actually wake up and realize, oh, this is what my people have been advocating for, right? Now I can hear the outcries of those who have experienced injustice, right? Because quite frankly, I don't know how y'all don't get it. I don't know how y'all still don't get it. I just don't get it. I really don't. I really don't. I really don't. I just don't. I just don't. So that's just my thought. That's just my thought. I think at the end of the day, uh, people just want to believe in what they want to believe in. But I think it's really just about, being somebody who is strong willed. You know what I mean? Being somebody who's courageous. But in this book that I'm reading, let me see if I can find the book. Okay, I don't think it's on my bed. You guys know I'm reading the book. It's called The Emotional Lives of Black Women. And, she talks about this, right? She talks about how for Black people, and she's speaking specifically to Black women, and I'll speak to this as a Black woman in the ways in which I can relate to it, right? Black women who, and she really talks about Black people, so maybe I'll speak in a general sense, but Black people who have a strong race, like who have strong pride in their culture and who have awareness, right, of their Blackness, and they feel that with a sense of dignity, right, they relate to it with a level of dignity, they experience less insecurity in regards to their race, right? And I know that to be true. I feel like African American people who hate themselves, right, like simply put, Black people who are struggling with self-hate, they don't want to be associated with Blackness. They don't like being Black, right? And so they're more susceptible to experiencing injustice, right? Because it's like in their minds, everybody is equal. In their minds, Black people are degenerate, and that is why they're having the inequalities that they're having, right? So it's pretty twisted when you think about it. But that's also what being in a foreign land does to a person, right? It makes a person crazy. Freedom is a social construct. We have to contend with that, so you're never gonna be prepared for the season of struggle, regardless of study well. I don't know if I would say freedom is a social construct. I mean, I think freedom is a state of mind. Oh, that's funny. Well, boomerang. Yeah, this is a little tie though. Y'all know I love fashion. I love me some fashion. But yeah, you guys, I don't know. I mean, I walk out into the world as a Black woman, and if I'm not with my Black friends, I don't feel safe. I live in a very racist state, and even historically, right? It's very racist where I live, small town. And maybe you can or cannot relate to this, depending on if there's any Black women on here. You don't always feel safe when you walk out into the world, right? It's just something heavy that I think that we carry, and I know for myself, it's just something heavy that I carry. But I think if you're, not really aware of what's going on, right, as an African American person, then you're gonna just kind of shrug that off as, to me, maybe having anxiety, right? But yeah, I mean, when you walk into a space and you're the only Black person, like, I don't really feel a sense of safety there, right? When I'm experiencing just walking down the street, and it's just, I don't know, it's weird, and I don't think that people who are who grow up in spaces where they, have that um level of like diversity or whatever, and they're around Black people, I don't think they experience the same thing. So that's just what I think. How do you believe this trend go into the middle class? What trend do you mean? What trend goes into the middle class? What trend goes into the middle class? I'm not talking trends, I'm talking reality. And that's what I was trying to say earlier when I was just talking about how I seen this person come online talking about how Black women are making over $500,000 a year. I mean, that's absurd. Where did you pull that from? Right? And he like referenced the LinkedIn article, and I'm like, and I don't even think it was Black women. I think it was women, which could be possible, right? Like I said, I think that with, feminism, modern day revamp, but you guys have seen this, right? There's been many African American authors who've came out and spoke about Black feminism, but the premise in all of the work is really that our feminism, right, agendas have never been the same, right? White women advocate for feminism to get in proximity to the white patriarchal male, to garner the same level of economic opportunities as the patriarchal male, right? Black women are fighting to be seen as women. That's not the same. It's not the same. So that's more so what I was saying in regards to that. And so when someone comes out and says, "Hey, Black women are making," it's like, that's not true. That's not true. And maybe it wasn't a Black man, but he was saying like women, and I'm like, that's inadequate. Maybe white women, but you guys know, right? In the neutralist society, we don't really like to specify anymore. But if you look at any historical text, you can understand that the reason why there was always a black statistic and there was always a white statistic is because we have been segregated, we've been divided, and that's no different than it is today, right? And I don't know why this country's founding has to fall on the shoulders of the individuals, right? It's not me to say, oh, here's no, that's not true, right? It's black women. That's not on me. That's how this country was built. That don't have nothing to do with me. Me just pointing it out to say, hey, y'all, okay, this is a black woman's. That's not a black woman's issue. That's not a black people's issue. That's not me being racist in 2026. That's just me continuing the realities, right? The you know academic realities and so forth. You ain't never seen a black person in a history book. I mean, what are we talking about? So I'm not saying anything new. But let me see. Nicholas 777. You didn't answer the question. Honey, I don't know what you're saying when you say how deep do you believe this go into middle class? Maybe you gotta specify. But I thank you guys for complimenting my outfits. I know I love a fashion. My scarf is actually kind of, but yeah. So I'm probably going to wrap up. I just wanted to come in here and say that because I think that, like I said, when everybody is kind of looking for information, people are looking to be intellectually engaged. We go to work, we come home from work. For some of us, we might be able to have these conversations with the people around us. But for many of us, no. I think people gravitate towards social media specifically to meet with like-minded individuals. And so if people are doing this type of content and people are wanting to know, certain things, I think it just is a huge disservice to be someone who is ignorant in regards to certain realities because you choose to see the world in a very neutralistic way where it's never been that. And so I don't know, like I said, I think on some level, I'll say this, right? I think that there's a level of maturity that it takes to be able to see American society as what it always has been, right? I think the people who live within this society and believe that it's just always been about equality and it's always been sunshines and rainbows at this day and age in 2026, how big and grown, however you might be, I would say it's just time to grow up. Like it's never been that. So I don't know how you could even think that. It's just what I think. So I'm going to go. I hope you guys have a fabulous night.